I'm going to teach you our dessert online cooking course, starting with our chocolate brownies. Now there's a few pretty crucial tips when you're doing desserts, and I'm going to show you some very simple tips to get yourself started, and after that anyone can bake. Number one rule, preheat your oven, which we've got on at 170 degrees for our chocolate brownies. Number two is get your equipment organised. So in a second I'm just going to grease my tray here, ready for our chocolate brownies. And thirdly, always measure out your ingredients first. So what we have here is our pre-measured icing sugar, pre-measured flour, both have been sieved, our diced chocolate and butter, our eggs, and our chopped walnuts. So the very first thing I'm going to do here is some melted butter and a pastry brush. I'm just going to grease this tray first, ensuring that our chocolate brownies don't stick. So for melted chocolate, you always want to try and use a double boiler. A double boiler is essentially a pot with a small amount of hot water in it, and we've got our bowl here with our chocolate and butter. The key for this is you never want your water boiling, and the other thing you don't want is the water touching the bottom of the bowl, because if it does, you're going to split your chocolate. So we just put that on. As you can see, our chocolate's now melted. It's nice and shiny. Now you see a couple of lumps in there, butter predominantly and a little bit of chocolate. So as I was saying at this stage, just take it off, put it beside the stove, and just let the residual heat within the chocolate continue to melt the butter and the chocolate. So we're just putting our brownie into our pre-greased mould, scraping around. Try and get as much out as you can. So as you can see, the mix still has that lovely sheen. And that tells me straight away that the chocolate's been melted properly. So I'm just going to grab a tray, just place it underneath your brownies tray so it's a lot easier to get out of the oven. And there you go, that's going to go in our oven at 175 degrees for 35 to 45 minutes depending on your oven. Okay, on to our next recipe. We're making banana bread or banana cake. I've got two large loaf tins here which I've already pre-greased. You can also, for this recipe, do 3 medium-sized loaf tins and it works out fine. The other thing I've done is, these are fresh bananas, and what I've done is, when bananas go black, I put them in the freezer, skin and all, and when I get 9 bananas, you just defrost them, peel them, put them in a bowl, mash them up, and away you go. A lot of people tend to throw bananas out, which is a waste. So, like I said, as soon as they go black, freeze them, and then use them to create banana bread. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to cream our butter and sugar. So our soft butter is going to go in. And as you can see, we've got ourselves set up again. Everything's measured out, all our flours are sifted, sugars are measured, eggs, everything's ready to go. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is cream our butter and sugar. Now, really important to remember, as we did with the brownies, every so often we're going to grab our spatula and we're going to wipe around the sides. pop that up. Just give it a wipe around, just ensure that sugar's off the sides. Okay, next step. We're going to start adding our eggs. So just do one at a time. Okay, next step, we'll grab our bananas and we should start adding them in. So after this step, a lot of people tend to panic, especially my clients at this step, because they see their bananas are gone in and they think it's split. It's no problem, because what's going to happen now, we're going to add our sieved flour and bicarb a little bit at a time, and the mix will come back. Okay, so we've got our mix in our trays, as you can see. I just want to show you a really cool little garnish. So you just grab a banana. You're going to cut it in half, lengthwise. And what you want to do is push the banana into the mix, like so. And the mix will cook around the banana. This is a great recipe. This recipe is gluten, dairy free. So for a lot of my clients that suffer with dairy and gluten allergies, they absolutely love this dessert. These oranges, what I've done is put them in a pot of water, completely cover them with water, bring them to the boil and let them simmer for a good 2.5, maybe sometimes 3 hours. But what you want, they got to be soft. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put these in the food processor and we're going to pulverize them. Skin, pith, seed, everything is going to get pulverized. A lot of people ask me why I do 5 oranges. 5 oranges is way more than I need for the recipe, but what it does, it sets you up for the next time you make the recipe, because the hardest part and the longest part of this recipe is boiling the oranges. So we're going to have enough here to make our recipe right now. The rest of it we're going to put in a Ziploc bag, squeeze the air out, write on it what it is and freeze it, and next time you make the recipe, the puree is ready to go. So first thing, I'm just going to cut these in quarters. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to mix these up. So, put your first orange in. So start with one. Turn your machine on. So what we can do here is just make a little passion fruit cream cheese icing. Now, of course, if you put the passion fruit cream cheese icing on top of the orange cakes, they're no longer dairy free, but they are beautiful with this icing on it. This icing is also excellent on top of a carrot cake. So first thing we've got here is our cream cheese. Let's break it up, put it in. Like so. Passion fruit and melted butter. Now you can add vanilla essence into it, but I have some fresh vanilla beans here, so what I'm going to do is I've just split this vanilla bean in half. So I'm going to scrape out the vanilla bean and just tap that in. This is going to add a beautiful flavour and it's going to look fantastic. So just give that a quick mix. scrape down the edges, and then our icing sugar, sieved icing sugar, straight in. Okay, on to our last recipe, our mini orange cakes. Once you get the orange pureed, this is a very simple recipe. So the very first thing we're going to do, put your eggs straight into the bowl, caster sugar. So using a whisk, just give it a light whisk just to dissolve that sugar. Orange puree. Just mix that in. And lastly, our baking powder and our ground almonds. So really important to mix it in well. Just go around the side of the bowl and scrape down any excess. Now, that's easy. But the next trick, you got to be really careful that these don't stick. There's not a lot in here to keep the orange cake together besides the eggs and the almond meal. So when you grease your tray, you got to grease it really well, almost excessive well. Because the last thing you want to do, you've got all that effort to make a beautiful mini orange cakes, and then if you don't put enough grease in here and you go to get them out and they fall to pieces, it's incredibly disappointing. So I use canola spray. And I kid you not, you really want to grease this well. That well. So just go around. Now don't worry, your orange cakes aren't going to absorb this oil. It's just merely to get them out.